Hello, dear students. Welcome back to your online class of English. This is part 2 of Understanding an Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, your second poem from the textbook Flamingo. Please watch part 1 before watching this lesson. We have already completed 2 stanzas and now we will be completing the remaining 2. Let's begin. Surely, Shakespeare is wicked. The map, a bad example, with ships and sun and love tempting them to steal, for lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes, from fog to endless nights. On their slag heap these children, where skins peeped through by bones and spectacles of steel with mended glass like bottle bits on stones. All of their time and space are foggy slum. So blot their maps with slums as big as doom. Pay attention to the words which have been used. Cramped holes, fog, endless night, slag heap, skins peeped through by bones, foggy slum, as big as doom. Such a pathetic picture. These words really draw a poignant picture. Look at this photo, clicked somewhere in India. Can you imagine the plight of those people who have to live like this? Can we even imagine to live in these huge pipes? This is their home. They live in a hole, quite literally sometimes. In the third stanza, the poet calls Shakespeare wicked and the map a bad example. The open-handed map that we read about in stanza 2, he calls it a bad example. Why does the poet do so? That is because Shakespeare and the map represent the world of riches. The plays written by Shakespeare talk about and celebrate kings and queens and palaces and love. The map shows them the vastness of the world which is far removed from their mundane and dismal life. They cannot afford this free life depicted by Shakespeare and the map, and it entices or encourages them to resort to illegal means of acquiring those good things in life. That is why the poet calls Shakespeare wicked and the map a bad example, as they can lead these boys and girls to a wrong path. As their lives are just limited to their slums, which are nothing but dingy, congested shacks, the poet calls them cramped holes. Their life begins in fog and ends in endless night. It is the same idea explained in the second stanza, that how their life promises nothing positive and their future is bleak. On their slag heap these children, slag heap means a hill or area of refuse from a mine or industrial site, waste. These slum dwellers live in such unhygienic places, and mostly they live near industries where they also seek employment. By slag heap, the poet also refers to the malnourished and emaciated bodies of these children. The ashen pallor of their bodies, because of the poor condition of their living, makes the comparison to waste material. And they themselves are treated as waste by the society. So, the slag heap is quite apt. They do not have access to basic amenity of even food, and their bones are visible on their thin bodies. They wear spectacles of steel, but they do not have proper ones. They are broken and kept together somehow. They look like pieces of broken glasses on stone, bottle bits like broken glasses on stones, with cracked glasses They look like mended bottle bits. These stones also reflect the expression on their faces. Their eyes, which are lifeless like stones. All of their time and space are foggy slum. This image highlights their impoverished existence, which is restricted to foggy slums. You must have noticed that we are coming across the word fog for the third time. Fog is also symbolic of ignorance. Fate has charted out a bleak path as the future holds no promise for these children. Their life is an endless fog until they die. The maps of their future are already blotted with gloom and doom, and doom means destruction and death. The poet repeatedly uses the word fog, right, to talk about the unclear, vague and dull life of the slum children that promises them no bright future. Time for poetic devices. Can you find examples of alliteration? I think alliteration was one of the very first poetic devices that you learned. So here we have surely Shakespeare and from fog. The first letter S is there, and these two words are consecutively placed. So we have two examples of alliteration. Then we have examples of metaphor. For lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes. So their homes are called cramped holes by the poet. So this is metaphor. Then we have their slag heap. On their slag heap. The emaciated bodies of the children are called slag heap compared to waste. And there we have another example of metaphor. The next one we have is simile, like bottle bits on stones. Their spectacles, their eyes, compared to bottle bits on stones. The word used here is like. The other example of simile is with slums as big as do, where slums and the words as are used. So we have two examples of simile as well. Let's move on now, shall we? The fourth stanza. Unless governor, inspector, visitor, this map becomes their window, and these windows that shut upon their lives like catacombs break open till they break the town and show the children to green fields and make their world run azure on gold sands and let their tongues run naked into books, the white and green leaves open, history theirs whose language is the sun. The last stanza is full of optimism. It is an appeal to the governors, inspectors and visitors who are the people who hold some kind of power in the society. So the appeal is for them to realize their moral duty and do something for these children. The poet urges them to transport the children beyond the darkness of today to the possibilities of tomorrow. Otherwise, these classrooms and this slum will become tombs or large graves, burying these children in the dark confines of the slum. Catacombs means the large graves. These people can make policies. Who are these people? The powerful people. They can make policies, they can implement them efficiently, they can take steps to improve the education system for these slum children and rescue them from suffering inequality and discrimination and welcome them in the world shown in the map. The limitless world full of opportunities and happiness. Break or break open. The poet wants the children to break free from these shackles of class inequalities and have access to the bright world. But this line can also be interpreted as a warning given to the powerful people to do something. To do something lest these children lose patience and are tempted to take resort to legal ways of getting things as indicated in the second stanza. If they grow tired of their suffering and stop cooperating in any way, and they break the social structure and become incorrigible, then there will be no turning back. A society will be ruined. It will ruin the society, so the authorities, influential people should lend a hand so that these children find a way of coming out of the gloomy slum and see as well as appreciate the beauty of nature so that they grow to be independent, free, liberated, and creative people. That way they will be out of all bondages, delving into books and exploring the realm of knowledge. The green fields stand for freedom and hope. Their tongue should run naked into books refers to the act of enabling children to taste or experience all aspects of life without restrictions. They will be reading books, they will be acquiring knowledge. They should learn both from the books represented by white as well as from the leaves of nature, that is green. That is what is meant by the line, books, the white and green leaves open. The books, the texts as well as nature. They should learn from both. The poem ends with this beautiful and arresting line. It gives us a reason for why every child should have access to knowledge. History theirs, whose language is the sun. The sun is the ultimate source of energy. It is symbolic of knowledge, enlightenment, warmth, and life itself. If these children are given access to education and a social transformation is undertaken, then they are also capable of making it to history, doing something for a cause and leaving their mark in history. Also, their language should have the warmth of a sun. Coldness is not a very good quality. So if their language has that warmth and knowledge, they will carve a niche for themselves in the world. Now, poetic devices used in the fourth stanza. I think by now you can easily identify similes, repetition, metaphors. But still, let's go through it once more. So, we can see a word flashing here, like. So, something is being compared to something. It is a case of simile. Windows that shut upon their lives like catacombs. The meaning has been explained earlier, and this is actually an example of simile. Then we have break or break open. The word break is repeated twice. This is repetition. Here you will see two words, run, run. They are repeated, but they are in two different lines. What is the device used here? It is anaphora. Anaphora refers to a poetic technique in which successive phrases or lines begin with the same words. So here we have an example of anaphora. Now let's talk about symbols. Symbol, a literary device that contains several layers of meaning. So here we have sun. It was just explained to you in the last slide how sun here stands for a lot of things like knowledge, enlightenment, life itself. So this word is actually a symbol. While the word white and green leaves, here the green leaves, they just do not mean any green leaf of a plant. They mean nature. So green leaves refer to nature, which can also be our source of knowledge. We can learn a lot from nature. So there we have two symbols which have been used. Actually, this poem is filled with symbols. Fog, doom, each and every word has a deeper layer of meaning, and as you read the poem again and again, you will understand them more deeply. The poem touches upon themes of social injustice and class inequality. It questions the value of education in Islam. It exposes the widespread neglect of these children who are uncared for like the rootless weeds. It gives the readers a description of malnourished children living in unhygienic conditions, but the poem does not dwell upon pessimism. It highlights the role of the educators and the more privileged class in society to liberate these children from the shackles they are bound in and to show them the path of progress, enable them to grow and develop. So what is the solution? Did you think about it? As the poet appeals to the people who have power in their hands to come ahead and do something for the underprivileged, because they can afford to make a step. We as a society are interdependent on each other, and so we need to help each other out at every step. Now, what if I say that we can solve this problem only if we feel empathetic about their condition instead of being sympathetic? So this is your task. Try to find out the difference between the words empathy and sympathy. With that, we have reached the end of this poem. Go through the video and try to understand each line. Make sure that you watch part 1 before this one. And in case you have problems, feel free to call or drop in a message. Even if you don't have any problems but you want to discuss something about this poem, please call. I will be sharing a few questions with you in the next class. So make sure that you understand the entire poem. I hope I have been able to help you with the comprehension of this poem. I am M. Reshmi Irani, and I will see you again very soon. Till then, take care and thank you so much.